All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Lake Mills City Council, July 19th, 2022. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Quidno?
Here.
Mr. Waters?
Here.
Ms. Curler?
Here.
Mrs. Bishop?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, if everyone please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Correction and/or approval of City Council minutes of June 21st, June 22nd, July 9th, and July 12th of 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the City Council minutes from June 21st, 22nd, July 9th, and July 12th of 2022.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Ms. Quidno. Any discussion? Steve, you just need to speak up if you have anything tonight, okay? Feel free to interrupt. All right, thanks. All in favor? Steve, are you in favor?
Yes, aye.
5-0. All right. Correspondence. Steve, since we got you going here, any correspondence? Community correspondence.
Right now I don't have any of my emails in front of me. I did receive 2 emails and just don't recall the exact details right now. I'd have to get back to you on them.
That's fine. We'll probably cover it as we go down the line here. Ms. Curler?
I just had some correspondence regarding the city manager candidates, Public Works Board, and the Joint Rock Lake Committee.
All right. And my correspondence was mostly surrounding the city manager position, and I did have one as well on the Sandy Beach restaurant. Mrs. Bishop?
Yes, I had correspondence regarding the city manager candidates, ATVs, 2 regarding EMS, some regarding the Bartels Beach donor sign, a correspondence about an RLAC meeting in August, and a correspondence about tobacco prevention in the city.
Tobacco prevention?
Yes.
Ms. Quidno?
Very similar to Ms. Bishop. I did not have the one about tobacco. I just want to clarify. Nor did I have the one, basically mine was about the city manager position, EMS, as well as some general questions with regard to Sandy Beach, certain some general overall citywide things that were of question, as well as how voting and meeting works.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next is a question and public comment. No public hearing tonight, so the public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you've registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments, and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. So the floor is open. Would anyone like to make public comment? Going once, going twice. Thank you. So that portion of the meeting is now closed. Moving on to item 7, which is the city manager's report.
I have provided the treasurer's cash reports and the monthly voucher summaries and the check registers. And there's also a police report. Are there any questions?
No, we did have a special session last Tuesday and requested recommendations for a possible consultant on the EMS issue. Is that something that you're expecting to give us some options maybe at our next meeting?
I think I ran the first RFP out today, and we'll get comments and see if it's ready. It should be ready on the August.
Yeah, but I
5th
can't get
meeting.
in.
Should be ready on the August 5th meeting. And then I'll push it out via email to all the consultants.
Okay,
And expect the quotes to be back in on August 31st. They have 60 days then after the contract's signed to complete the report. So depending on how things go, it should be done sometime in November, December.
Lowercase?
November, December as far as recommendations to council?
Yep.
So we can't do it any quicker than that?
I kind of doubt it, but we can see what they can do.
All right, circle around and get more information on that. Any other questions for Mr. Wilkie? Yes.
I've got a couple, maybe they're for Sam. On the cash reports, the ARPA funds are shown as approximately $262,000. Is that the full amount that we have remaining? We're not expecting anything else from this state, is that correct?
That's through June. I believe the second payment came in, so no, that should be.
You might want to turn your mic on.
Thank you, sorry. Those are through the end of June, those totals, and I believe the second payment came in July. So we should have got another $313,000, I believe, for the month of July. That'll show up on the next report.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Steve. Item 8, council members' board reports and acceptance of minutes from library board minutes of June 20th, joint review board meeting minutes of June 30th, 2021, planning commission minutes of May 24th, 2022, public works board minutes of June 14th, 2022, and joint Rock Lake committee of May 9th, 2022. That first one I read, the June 20th for the library board, was also 2022. Is there any comment from council members in any of these minutes? Or comment or discussion? Comment, that is a discussion point, right?
Yes.
All right. Seeing none, I will accept these minutes into our meeting record. We'll move on to council business. Item A is a board appointment of the city manager appointment of Michael Foster to the Police and Fire Commission. Is there anything to read there, Misty?
No, this is just Mr. Wilkie's appointment of Mr. Foster to the Police and Fire Commission. Typically in the past, the council has still approved that appointment.
Mr. Wilkie, any comment?
Mike Foster first started on the Police and Fire Commission about 2013, and then served on the council and the Plan Commission and several other committees. And he currently serves on the Plan Commission again, and I asked him to fill in on the Police and Fire Commission, and he has agreed. So
Okay.
I've appointed him, and normally the council makes a motion and just accepts.
All right, can we have a motion to that effect?
I move to accept the city manager's appointment of Michael Foster to the Police and Fire Commission.
Second.
I'll second.
So motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop, and a close second by Mr. Fields. Any discussion? Can we have a quick roll call here?
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, thank you. Item B on the agenda is miscellaneous license applications. We have a sidewalk cafe license for Daydream Believer Books and Gifts LLC, 130 East Lake Street. Is there anything to read there, Misty?
No, we don't have any prepared motions. These are just new license applications. The one that you just brought up, which is the Daydream Believer Books and Gifts. And then there's two more that we can talk about separately if you'd like.
Yeah, let's take them one by one, I guess, real quick here. So we need city council approval on each of these then?
Yes.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the Sidewalk Cafe license for Daydream Believer Books and Gifts LLC.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Ms. Quidnow. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, next is a Class A liquor and Class A fermented malt beverage, cigarette and tobacco, and weights and measures license for IYS Ventures LLC, DBA iMart Stores, located at 819 North Main Street, and appointing Cindy Mitchell as agent. Can we get a motion for this?
I move to approve Class A liquor and Class A fermented malt beverage, cigarette and tobacco and weights and measures license for IYS Ventures located at 819 North Main Street and appointing Cindy Mitchell as agent.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Bishop, second by Ms. Quidnow. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and then a Class A fermented malt beverage and Class A liquor, cider only, cigarettes and tobacco, and weights and measures license for IYS Ventures LLC, DBA iMart Stores located at 206 West Madison Street, and appointed Ashley Easelman as agent. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Class A fermented malt beverage, Class A liquor, cider only, cigarette and tobacco, and weights and measures licenses for IYS Ventures at 206 West Madison Street, and appointing Ashley Uselman as agent.
Second.
I'll second.
He's trying.
So Steve, well, I don't want to go there. Thank you, Steve. I think you're on a delay, though.
Okay.
So we had a motion by Ms. Curler, second by Mrs. Bishop. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call?
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, fantastic. Next on the agenda is Resolution 22-37, Recognition of City Service, Michael Mick T. Selck. I'm going to have Ms. Curler read this. I'm fighting a migraine, and she volunteered to to read this resolution for us tonight, so you're on.
Resolution 22-37, in appreciation of the public service to the City of Lake Mills from retired Chief of Police Michael Mick T. Selck. Whereas Michael Mick T. Selck has served over 28 highly distinguished years with the City of Lake Mills Police Department, the City Council, City Administration, and citizens of Lake Mills with a constant desire to provide the highest level of service and integrity. And whereas during his career with the Lake Mills Police Department, Michael Mick T. Selck worked as a patrolman, sergeant, captain, and chief of the police department, and retired from his role as chief of the Lake Mills Police Department on July 5th, 2022. And whereas Michael Mick T. Selck has devoted countless hours and immeasurable effort to providing positive contributions to all operations of the City of Lake Mills, while exhibiting the highest level of loyalty and enthusiasm for his work, the Lake Mills Police Department, and community. And whereas Michael Mick T. Selck's resolute attention and dedication to public safety, leadership and professionalism, approachability, sense of humor, and ability to understand, relate, and respond to the citizens of Lake Mills has contributed to the constant improvement of the Lake Mills community. And whereas the dedication and commitment demonstrated by Michael Mick T. Selck to the Lake Mills Police Department and community has provided a lasting and meaningful contribution to the City of Lake Mills. And whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills desires to recognize and honor Michael Mick T. Selck for his career of loyal service to the Lake Mills Police Department, the City of Lake Mills, and its citizens. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills does hereby recognize the dedicated public service and career of Michael Mick T. Selck and extends best wishes for an enjoyable and fulfilling retirement from the Lake Mills Police Department. Adopted this 19th day of July 2022.
All right, can I have a motion?
I move to accept Resolution 22-37 in appreciation of public service to the City of Lake Mills from retired Chief of Police Michael Mick T. Selck.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop. Staff comment.
I thought Dan did an outstanding job of writing the resolution because it was really well written, and I think it covered almost everything. I did want to note that Mick has been here as long as I have, and I've experienced a lot of things with him, highs and lows and emotional times and those types of things. I got to hear all the things that were wrong with him from the other chiefs, and I got to experience all the good things from him while he was chief. And so I really enjoyed being able to work with him, and I think he really exhibited the ability to learn and take in things and also to be very empathetic and compassionate. So I think those worked in his advantage and made him a good chief.
Great. Any other comments?
I was looking at the acting chief of police just in case he had something to say. You know, I've gotten to know Mick pretty well. I very much appreciate our relationship, and he is certainly going to be missed as the chief of police of the City of Lake Mills. The guy's approachability, you know, he's human, and in that role, I think it's really, really important to connect with the constituents, the people that you are serving. And I don't know, I can't remember a chief of police in the City of Lake Mills that fit that criteria in my mind. So it's absolutely been a pleasure, and he will certainly be missed.
I'm also still looking for that bag that was supposed to be on my desk.
Go ahead.
I'll just say Chief Selck responded to a call that I had once, and I was surprised to see the chief show up, but I really appreciated it, very professional. So I really appreciate your service, Chief. Thank you.
I've been a resident of Lake Mills for about 25 years, and Mick was here before I came to town, and met him shortly thereafter. Great representative of the police department, great representative of the City of Lake Mills. I know that the community loves him dearly, and I'm sure he'll be missed, but thank you for your service to the community.
And I was going to say that working with you has been an absolute pleasure. I will second Dan's approachability comment. As someone who was, before I was on city council, was working with you and in a way that had potential issues with regard to a rally, we came to some really awesome conclusions and worked well together. And I'm very sad that you're retiring, but I'm happy for you and your family.
Chief, I want to say thank you for your many years of service to the community, for the many years that I lived here and never knew you and never met you, and then the last year and a half since I've had the opportunity to get to know you and work with you. I appreciate your sense of humor, your dedication, as Dan said, your approachability. I appreciate the programs that you've supported, including the Citizens Police Academy and the School Resource Officers and all the many programs and initiatives that you've moved forward in your time as chief. Your volunteer service to our community, I think, is important to highlight as well, and I thank you for that. And I'm sorry that I got a little emotional during reading the resolution, but it's very heartfelt. We will miss you.
Mr. Fields, I was going to give you an opportunity if you had anything.
Sure, I just want to say kind of a long distance congratulations to Mick. Definitely enjoy retirement. Love sitting down and having some one-on-one time with you. And I expect you to get some miles on that bike so I can come back and practice with you.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
I,
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Fantastic. If you don't mind, I'd love to come out and shake your hand real quick. Thank you.
Sorry if I make a comment?
I was going to ask you if you wanted to.
Sure.
Mr. President, I make a motion to suspend the rules so that retired Chief Selck can speak with
You
us.
have to, like, he's a staff member. And
Still?
He's retired now, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's official right now. Well, whether or not there needs to be one, I'll second that.
So, oh shucks, guys, that was really, really nice and very humbling to hear your words. And Dan, your words meant a lot to me when I read those. I got a little choked up, and they're a bit overstated, but I'll take it. And I just want to say that this time meant a lot to me. And I'm thankful for the opportunity, and I just want you to know that I am available in whatever capacity the city needs me. I'm not leaving. I'll be right where I am on my front porch reading a book. And if there's any way I can help in service, please reach out. So thank you very much. It's been my distinct honor to serve this community.
Thank you. All right. It'll be hard to follow that one up.
Right.
Item D on the agenda is Resolution 22-38, recognition of appreciation for legendary Lake Mills. I'd like Mrs. Bishop to read that resolution and help us out tonight.
Okay. Well, Resolution 22-38, in appreciation of public service to the City of Lake Mills from legendary Lake Mills. Whereas the City Council of the City of Lake Mills desires to recognize and thank legendary Lake Mills, its administrators and members, for coordinating and hosting the community meet and greet held on Friday, July 8th, 2022, as part of the search for the city's next city manager. And whereas the community meet and greet was a public forum and roundtable discussion intended to introduce the final 4 candidates for city manager to the Lake Mills community, and to provide an opportunity to identify and discuss important local issues and gather feedback of the community. And whereas The community meet and greet was well-organized and well-attended, with approximately 40 comment forms provided by community members for consideration by the City Council. And whereas the efforts of Legendary Lake Mills and its notable attention to detail, professionalism, and adaptability made the event a success and a meaningful part of the process to place the next city manager of the City of Lake Mills. Now therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Mills does hereby recognize and thank Legendary Lake Mills for its dedication and efforts and looks forward to more collaboration in the future. Adopted this 19th day of July, 2022.
Thank you, Mrs. Bishop. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 22-38, recognizing recognition of appreciation of Legendary Lake Mills.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Ms. Quidnow. Any discussion on this? I'll just mention that it was a great event. It was wonderful that we had community support like that. The community came out for the event and had a ton of positive feedback on it. So it was just a great event all the way around, I think. So it's nice to recognize Legendary Lake Mills for the event and their participation in the event to help us bring the community together.
I think we only asked them about a week in advance of the event, and they were able to pull it together, so we really appreciate that. And, you know, when they first posted the event online, there were some questions asking for additional information, who the candidates were, et cetera, and they came back right away and were able to provide that to the community in a way that the council wouldn't have been able to. So thank you guys, we appreciate that.
And I'd also like to say that those that showed up was a great representation of our community as far as who was there to ask those questions. Having 40 people in a small town like this was mentioned by all 4 candidates to be quite an impressive show. So we really need to thank Legendary Lake Mills for their unbelievable and well-supported efforts in making this happen.
Dan, I should have went to you. Do you have anything there? All right.
I'll add my 2 cents. Thank you, Raina, and to the board of Legendary Lake Mills. We appreciate your partnership on that effort and look forward to other efforts where we can work together.
Anything else? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, thank you. I didn't see you out in the crowd there, Raina. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda is a discussion on Lake Mills Community Center. So let's open this up. Mrs. Bishop?
Okay. Well, I hope reading that resolution didn't go toward my word count for tonight. I'm just kidding. You all have my memo. I didn't want to rehash the whole policy, but I wanted to bring to the council's attention key issues that staff and I were having in trying to rewrite this policy. Because we could have written it and then without your input, would have been a futile process. So I can just go down, Mr. Waters, if you want me to just go down the issues. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
So the first one is user eligibility and designations. I referenced the section in the policy, but I tried to give the council a brief overview of what the issues actually were here. And so really, I'll just skip down to my questions, assuming we all kind of know what the user classifications are and the issue about sanctioned users. And so first with sanctioned users, you know, if it's an organization, the question that came up on appeal last year was, how is that organization defined? Is it an incorporated entity with the state of Wisconsin? Is it a 501c3? Or is it just an informal group of people? And so the first thing that the council needs to decide is, should it be defined? And should it be defined in relation to, my next question is, sanctioned groups or users? And then what are those criteria? So I'm kind of combining that first question with the second question, A and B, under my first set of issues here. So I'll open it for discussion. I've given my recommendation, but I want to see what everybody else thinks about these couple of issues first.
It's my understanding in the past is a sanction group needed to have a filing, either incorporated or as a service group, nonprofit.
Well, that wasn't, that was the idea, but when we look at the list of sanctioned users, and I apologize for not including it here, there were some that were more local. I think one of the Rock Lake, or was it a river group, was included, and they're not
Rock
even.
River Coalition.
That one, the coalition, they're not native to Lake Mills per se, they cover the whole river basin. And so we had some sort of users that seemed to be an exception to that rule that you just kind of stated, Mr. Waters. So we have that. We have, in my later example, the American Red Cross is not a Lake Mills designated organization where they have more than 50% of users being here. And so how do we want to apply the rules that we said were going to be used for criteria, but in practice haven't always been used?
I would like to see some leniency towards charity groups like an American Red Cross, for instance. Maybe they don't have that 50% in Lake Mills, but their service scope is far-reaching and does include residents of the city of Lake Mills. So there's probably organizations like that. Mr. Wilkie?
The American Red Cross used to also have a local committee. So they had a president and a secretary and several members that were all local. And they had a board that met regularly. In fact, the city manager was on the board for years. And that's how they got sanctioned. The Rock River Coalition was actually, our wastewater treatment plant was one of the primary original members of that group as it morphed. And so it was an advantage to us to have the meetings here. So we were central, first of all, in the Rock River Basin. And the impact it had, and then having us being able to just meet in this building made it significantly easier. So our wastewater treatment plant operator at the time was the president of the organization. So that's one of the things that came through. But yeah, we kind of expanded it as long as they had a board and a president and somebody who would take the liability, we generally opened it up. So the Red Cross always provided us with what we needed as well as the Rock River Coalition. Which eventually became part of Jefferson County. So, and Jefferson County, then we, as a government agency, that we allow to have access.
So, go ahead, Ms. Curler.
No, if you had a follow-up. that's
No, I was just going to narrow it down then. What criteria does this council want to have for somebody to, or a group to be a sanctioned user? But Ms. Curler, you should ask your question first.
Well, I guess I was going to, kind of make a broader comment about user eligibility. And I looked at a few similar policies for other communities like Oconomowoc, Waukesha, a few in our general region. And I wonder if, I like overall in your memo, you talk about simplifying things and making it easy for people to understand, easy for staff to administer. I think generally that's very good. I wonder if we need to use a class system or if we can just have some simple labels like maybe government, resident, non-resident. I don't know where the charity groups or nonprofits or whatever, however we'd classify them, how they would fit in there. Maybe they go in under government, maybe they go in the resident category, but I'm just thinking maybe naming them rather than calling them by class is maybe a little bit more straightforward.
What happens if the nonprofit has a city resident as the founder, not as a founding member or as a person who would be registering? So in that case, would we base it on that being a nonprofit like 501? I can't even think of it.
C3
Thank
or
you.
whatever, yeah.
Or is it going to be a resident fee? So do we want to classify that we determine the cost or the fee associated with their usage based on that particular status? And if so, how do we know if somebody is not providing that information, as an example?
That is really sort of the crux of the issue that I've had with city staff. And you can see in my recommendations, if it's a Wisconsin-based organization and their place of business as an organization or a business is Lake Mills, I would be okay giving them the resident rate. If you have a non-incorporated organization, for instance, informal group of people who meet, if there's a Lake Mills resident who's going to step up and be the applicant and be responsible for the damage fees and those types of things, then I would also charge them the resident rate. I don't think it's any different from somebody, I think I gave the example here, you know, having a bridal shower, but their family's in Watertown, but they're a resident here and they're bringing in 30 of their family members. I would charge that person, as the resident of Lake Mills, the resident rate. So that's kind of my thought process, but again, I bring it up to the council to say, how would you do it? What preferences do you have?
I mean, we're certainly not going to try to make a profit off of use of this building, but we do want to set a standard for appropriate usage and make sure that we're keeping it pretty high. So I appreciate your example of like a bridal shower or a family reunion. I do know one of the things that the city staff does not like having is glitter. So like when we had, I think there was a prom here. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Pretty sure that was my daughter's prom.
Oh, it was more than one.
Okay. So when we have a prom here, you know, does that fall under a city resident fee? Or does that fall under something different? So I think
That was a government,
that was government.
because the school district's a government.
Right, well, true, okay.
But you bringing up a good point on the staffing issue is that we really don't have staff to run a banquet facility.
Right.
I also might comment that when the building was built, there was a lot of pressure to make money. So that's probably why they went to the significant number of classes, because they were trying to be as generous to the groups that they felt were a benefit to the city of Lake Mills while still trying to make as much money as they could by running the building out, actually almost acting like a banquet facility. So that was a significant part of the original intent.
But since we don't need to do that anymore, correct? As much?
Well, I think it's a policy question, right? I mean, do we want to generate revenue from people that rent City Hall? We certainly have things that we can be spending that revenue on.
That's exactly.
Including maintaining and upkeeping the building. But I don't know what has been the general use. Maybe this would be a question for another day if you don't have it at hand, Steve. But, you know, what has been the general use in terms of number of banquets or weddings a year, and what kind of revenue has been coming in on those fees?
I would say from 2000 to about 2013, we made, between $5,000 and $10,000 a year. After COVID hit, it slowed down a little bit. After the 2008, really, it stayed up until about 13, then it kind of slowed down. Then when COVID hit, it really dropped off. And so we were down to, $1,200 to $2,200. It's bounced back some, but it's still not like it used to be.
So one point to the fees is, at the very least, we need to recoup our costs, especially if there's extra cleaning or, just extra wear and tear to the building itself. Moving tables around, for instance, is scratching the floors, which causes, people to come in and have to resurface them more frequently. And that's a sort of a hidden cost of what we're doing here. So for the fees, and we can get to it more in a little bit, Ms. Glednow, my perspective on having a resident versus non-resident rate is that our residents are paying taxes here, their taxes paid for the bonds for this building, and so to some extent they should derive a benefit from that, and that would be why you would have a difference in the fees. But again, open to discussion and, just deciding if we have sanctioned users or a class of users who get a free rate or an even further reduced rate from the residence rate, what is an amount or a deposit that should be required that covers like a cleaning fee if for some reason the building is not left in a sufficient state?
I have a thought on that, Mrs. Bishop. I don't know exactly if this would work, but if there is a category besides government that, I think one of the questions we've got to think about is there going to be a category besides government where we would not be charging a fee? But should there be some kind of a non-refundable deposit, for example? So that would provide the city with some funds in the case of, damage or just the maintenance, like you said, waxing the floors, whatever that might be. And maybe that is more of an issue in the downstairs room below here than it is in the smaller conference rooms. And so then maybe that's reflected in a deposit. So there could be a non-refundable deposit, but then also a fee structure. I think based on our experience last fall, getting away from the word sanctioned and getting away from discretion and anything that's unclear, is a good idea, so that it's as easy for people to understand what category they fit in and how much their fee is as possible. And then it saves staff time too, because nobody has to go through a process of, evaluating whether somebody meets the criteria or not, hopefully.
Okay, so I'm hearing there should be some type of non-refundable deposit even for a user that's not government or necessarily resident or non-resident, and if we call them sanctioned or not, that can be determined, but we should try to move away from that type of classification. Did I get that correctly, Ms. Curler?
That's my thought. I don't know if my colleagues
I'm leaning
agree,
toward
but
that,
that's,
as well, but are there any other comments on that?
Does
Okay.
Steve have any?
Mr. Fields? Nothing? Mr.
No,
Watt?
I'm kind of in agreement there, is trying to get away from some of the discretionary stuff and trying to make it as clean and simple as possible. So, and there's always going to be, just simply running the electricity, air conditioning, or lights. There's always dollars being consumed whenever somebody's using the room.
So in the fees, I'd like some feedback from staff as far as the costing and to get some numbers from them to review before making that decision.
So what I will do on that, Mr. Waters, is in rewriting this, I'll take staff input on the fees, and then we can have a final discussion before we approve a new policy.
Okay.
Would that be sufficient?
Yep.
Okay. Going back up to one question, how long should a group be sanctioned, in quotes, before they need to reapply? My thought process in talking to city staff is 2 years, having a reevaluation period to make sure groups that are no longer here, no longer functional, would then come off, and then new groups could be added by the city council. And then at that point where they're reapplying or their status is being reevaluated, we would make sure their deposit is also back up to what it should be if they've had any drawdowns for maintenance or fees.
But if I understood you correctly, you wanted to, or Lisa was talking about getting rid of the word sanctioned altogether, right? So those two questions would then be no, because it's not one of those things that matters if we decide to go in that direction. But I do like the idea of going through the list that we have on file now and really slimming down who is still, I guess, a registered group, not necessarily sanctioned.
Right, we'll come up with, based on the criteria I'm hearing from this discussion, the criteria and then a user list that is subject to either a reduced fee or only a mandatory deposit. And then if obviously that deposit is used, they would have to resubmit money to cover the rest of their fees. Or we would consider, are you not using the building in the best way? Maybe you should not be a user that gets this benefit. But that would come up to the council for action again, I think. Okay, so pending any other points on this section, let me look at the questions.
Catherine, one more thought on fees, although this does kind of tie to some of your subsequent questions, is for weekend use or times when the building isn't normally open, I think, I'd be interested in staff's perspective on how how should that be staffed, and therefore was the commensurate fee. And it may be that if we charge the appropriate fee to staff that maybe that's going to be higher than what the market would bear. I don't know, but I think I was really glad that you highlighted in your memo that there is, staff involvement in having to open and close a building over the weekend, having to stay late or stay up late, waiting for a party to be over. I mean, those are complicating factors that I think we have to somehow address.
And I think it's important that we put that somewhere where the public can see it as well. My own experience, I actually tried to rent the room below us for a birthday party in case there was a rain situation. I found other means, but in looking at the listing of the fees and all of this, it did not occur to me that there was a need to have like staff here at the time of the event or to open it. Like it just, I was in a rush to find things, so like those things did not stand out. And I believe it would be beneficial to make sure it's very clear that these are things that we need to consider, or anyone using the facilities need to consider.
So on the fee, well, let's start with the staff point. Currently, we've been having, the city clerk or the deputy clerk come in after hours and either open the building or close the building. And as I said in my memo, that's not really in their job description. And talking with city staff, I think the appropriate department to do this is the grounds facility department. We could have somebody come in. It would be probably overtime, especially if it's nights and weekends. But I think that would be the correct department to have this in as opposed to the clerk. So that's something that we would change, and I'd want to do that in consultation also with the new city manager, whoever that is, and make sure that he knows what departments are doing what. Also, what we've done for some users is, I know in the past they've had a key, and Misty, correct me on this, but for a user that we like trust or know, or that they're part of the government entity, when they're done with the building, they just drop off the key, and then I don't know that anybody was coming back in the building to check it. And for me, that's an issue because, like, let's say somebody left the water running in a sink, even accidentally. You come back in over the weekend, the building's flooded, nobody would have come back in to check. So I still think we need somebody to come in and check, even if it is a user that we trust or know, and even if they are dropping off a key. And to Ms. Quindell, your point, like, that's extra time that somebody's coming in off duty, that we have to pull somebody in that currently it's not their current job.
Right. We do, Eric is here from Parks and Rec. Is that something that, did you want to talk about how that would be manned, or?
I don't know if he knows that was my recommendation, so.
Surprise!
Not to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Going to say, welcome to the meeting, Mr. Schreiber.
And maybe
Surprise.
related to that, a little bit of a tangent, but we might want to consider when we would want to have an updated policy take effect, because if we're having a staffing study done, then maybe this, this need could be addressed in that as well. And, so maybe it doesn't take effect till 2023 or something like that, just to give us time to give the staff time to figure out those details.
So, moving down specifically to my fee section, I think we've kind of covered it, and what I wanted to highlight was just how convoluted the fee structure is based on the classes of users, based on resident and non-resident, based on the reservation fee. There's a lot of different fees that could apply based on what status you are, and I just want to clean that up, and that's kind of what I'm hearing from this group as well.
So is the reservation fee in addition to the rental fee?
My understanding is so you put down the reservation fee and then it goes toward the total cost. I could be wrong on that. So
The reservation fee is kind of like a security deposit. It is refundable. So yes, it is in addition to the room fee. However, it's basically a security deposit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so for instance, I don't know if you have this up, Misty, but like the Lake Mills room, if you're a non-resident, it's $200 to rent and $200 for reservations, so it'd be a total of $400. And you'd get $200
Yes.
back if it checked out okay at the end of the event.
Yes. So for non-resident, for the Lake Mills room, It'd be a $200 fee plus a $200 reservation fee, which would be refunded as long as there wasn't any extra cleanup damage or anything. And then there'd obviously also be the open close fee at the bottom and tax.
So this would be where, and I guess I appreciate Missy's perspective on this and for us to think this through, but I could see that reservation fee being shifted to being non-refundable. So that's your deposit, and that covers maintenance and, other kinds of things in addition to the room rental. So that would just be one way of handling. And also there's less staff time spent refunding people's, deposits.
So what are you doing in case of damage then?
Oh, that's true. You'd get the same amount of money either way, wouldn't you? So that doesn't.
Right. And I believe the Lake Mills room, this is one of my frustrations because I don't always know which room matches up. I think the Lake Mills room is actually the room you're in right now, the city council chambers. By looking at the next line, the Rock Lake room, which is the whole room, that's the community center. So that would be to use the whole room community center on a weekend for a non-resident would be a minimum of $800 plus the kitchen use $50. That's $850 plus your open close. You're looking at about $900. And then Ms. Curler, like you just said, that would be the non-refundable. That'd be for anything, even if it's for the 2-3 hour bridal shower or birthday party. This is where when Mrs. Bishop and I talked multiple times on these, it's really hard to determine based on the type of user and the length and the wear and the tear. It's very difficult to figure out the best way to go about this.
Misty, you brought up the good point of the amount of hours that a person or group could be using the area. Could we instead of setting a solid fee, make it more of an hourly rate?
I'm sorry, what, can you say that one more time?
Sure. Instead of it, because you mentioned the idea of that maybe a bridal shower or another event is only going to last 2 hours per se. If it's only 2 hours, it's hard to justify $900 investment in that. But is there a way that maybe instead of it being a solid, say $400 for a non-resident, to use it for even just 2 hours, that perhaps we do it more at for the first 2 hours, it's this amount, and then an additional certain amount after that for additional hours?
I mean, I personally think there's probably a lot of different ways to do it. It's just how do you manage it, and then that's making it even more difficult and convoluted, opposed to simpling it down as well. And again, it's just more parts of the difficulty in trying to determine the best way to do this. Ms. Curler brought up looking at Oconomowocs. That was one that I looked at. I looked at their fee structure, and I looked at other policies as well, and there's just nothing's jumped out as a really good way to do this.
I guess I heard keep it simple. I'd like to keep it as simple as possible.
I
So
agree.
that when people look at it, they can quickly understand where they fall. I think that was part of the issue we had this fall was the, where do I fall? Do I fall in B, C, or D? And why do I fall in that category? Can someone please explain it to me? And hopefully it would be simple enough that people wouldn't have that type of question.
Okay, so here again, simplification, flat fee versus hourly rate. I think, Ms. Quidnow, the flat fee is just easier for administration because let's say somebody was like, oh, I only used it 2 of my 8 hours. Do we then refund them again? Or is staff coming in to make sure that that person was out after 2 hours? I mean, those are the issues that have come up in my discussions with city staff. So from that perspective, I would recommend a flat fee.
Okay.
But, I want to see what the rest of the council says on that. I see head shake, yes, from Ms. Curler, perhaps, okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Waters is smiling, so he might
would,
agree.
I'd like to see the whole policy.
Okay,
But,
sure. We'll come up with something, again, with recommendations from staff on the exact fees. So Some of these names are going to be changed. You heard Miss Quest say she didn't exactly even know what room name was what, so we're going to simplify that as well. And then the issue of the grounds being rentable, my recommendation is to just take that out entirely because nothing stops, citizens or like I'll use bridal party again from like stopping by the street and taking a picture in front of City Hall, and should we have rented that out? Based on our policy as it stands, maybe, but is that a little ridiculous and onerous? Probably. So my recommendation is to take that out. And then the other thing that we've taken out, or I would recommend taking out in consultation with city staff, is when we get to kitchen use and like specific equipment, is not renting out like the VCR for $5. That's just really onerous on city staff to calculate. Did they even use it? I don't know. Should we charge for it? So those kinds of things in my mind are coming out. And you'll see that in the updated policy.
They actually have VCR on there?
I was using that as an example because I don't know what equipment we actually have. So projector maybe.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
I was going to say that needs to be updated if that's the case.
Okay, so those are the kinds of things that I will update in this section as well.
I think the current policy, the Lake Mills room, which is, I call it council chambers, I mean, I guess people have different names for it, but I think the current policy contemplates that would rarely be rented out, and I wonder if we want to just say it would not be rented out. I don't know what the circumstance would be, and certainly that could be appealed.
If maybe on the weekends for a wedding ceremony,
That they might want to use this
might
room.
want to use this room for a wedding ceremony, but I would say they would not have the banquet here. It would be downstairs.
Right.
Okay. all
The
right.
council
So-
chambers has historically only been, or Rock Lake Room, or whatever it was called. It's usually been by city manager approval only in our current policy. And the only time in the last 13 years that I can think of that's been a private group using it is exactly what Mr. Waters just stated. It was for a wedding ceremony. And a lot of time it's backup for individuals who are reserving the shelter at Commons Park, and then it's going to rain and they're panicking and don't know where to have their ceremony. We're kind of set up. It's a beautiful room. Never is there ever food or any of that allowed in the room, though. And I haven't noticed any sort of abuse to that.
I wouldn't want this room to be rented Monday through Thursday because of government business.
Right. And I think you had something, Mrs. Bishop, later in your memo about the Emergency Operations Center, which I think is, I don't know, it's one of the 3 conference rooms. And I think if that's really being used extensively for emergency operations and has equipment in it, that probably just shouldn't even be on the list as available to rent then.
Okay, I agree with that. I think, to
makes
protect
sense.
the equipment or to remove it or make sure it's all inventoried after somebody leaves is yet again another really onerous thing for city staff. And I'd rather just have our equipment protected, able to be used at a moment's notice for literally an emergency, and not have to kick a group out or try to force our way back in there because somebody's using it, so. Okay, so those notes were taken. Council approval procedures, so this council saw the appeal that happened last time, and currently, if there's a waiver and appeal of a decision by the city manager, that would come for council decision. Are there any specific criteria this council would like to see before something comes to us? Or is there something that we'd want to know if it happened so we could either make a decision or remove somebody as a user, something like that?
Is this something that should maybe go to the Parks Board before it comes to council? Steve's nodding his head no.
I don't know.
I would like to think that if the revised policy is clearer and more straightforward and it's not confusing about how to interpret it, that an appeal is really going to be somebody that just wants a different answer than what the policy clearly says. And people can appeal all kinds of things in the city. I wonder if maybe just having a form for general appeals maybe would, I'm not sure that we really need an appeal form just
Right.
for this policy, I guess is my thinking, if it's written in a clear way and people understand, the expectations. Just like if somebody wants a fee waiver, it's just kind of a standalone process.
Right, and I think that's exactly the issue. This was brought up because the policy says you can appeal a city manager decision or appeal
Yeah.
being a sanctioned user or not in that decision. And so I agree, I think if this is straightforward and applied the same to everybody across the board, there's really not a reason for an appeal or even a waiver.
Well, or at least there's not a reason for a form just for this policy, I guess is the way
Okay,
I'm
I
thinking of it. I
understand.
mean, anybody can appeal anything
Sure.
that the city decides, but I don't know if it needs a form just for this policy.
Okay, so you're
It seems like there
saying,
needs to be an appeal process.
You think there does need to be, Greg?
I'm getting
Yeah.
two different opinions, okay. That's okay. I'm
So
just
two
taking,
different-
no, I'm just taking
Two different
notes.
perspectives.
So I hear Ms. Curler saying if the policy is buttoned up, there's not necessarily maybe even a reason for an appeal, but I hear Mr. Waters saying there needs to be a format. Let me play this out, if somebody couldn't use a room that they wanted for a reason, that they could then bring it before the city council for a decision, is what I'm hearing Mr. Waters saying.
Yeah, there should be a process if they feel that maybe the policy's not meeting their needs for whatever reason.
So who makes the decision of,
City manager.
you answered my question before I asked it. He's psychic. Do we want to change who makes that decision?
No.
Okay.
The reason, the city manager is in charge of administering certain things within the city, and this would fall under that scope. Now, if there's a need for a complaint or something like that, then of course it would come to city council, but the city manager would manage this process.
And now the form for an appeal that I'm hearing Mr. Waters is recommending is for a specific decision made based on the policy, whereas if people in the community don't feel like the policy serves them generally, that they can't use the building as maybe they would like to, that can be brought before the council at any time, whether it's communication, public comment, even, during a meeting like this where it's noticed that this is on the agenda. Okay, so there's a couple of different avenues there where somebody could come to the council and let us know that there's an issue, either broad-based as a policy consideration or more specific with a decision about their own use. Okay, I'll figure out a way to get both of those contemplated.
I'm not sure what you're proposing, but I think what I heard Mr. Waters say was an appeals process for this policy. So if somebody disagrees with a decision that was rendered by the city staff in implementing this policy, that's something that they can
Right.
appeal. But if somebody just disagrees with the policy and wants to come and speak to us and say, I disagree, and I
different
think we
issue.
should change this, that's not really an appeal, I don't think.
Right,
Because they haven't
yes.
had a decision made, right?
Yes, and you said it better than I just did.
Okay, well, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those would be two separate things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
if somebody had an issue with like, let's say Sandy Beach fees, okay, well, they can come before us at any given meeting and speak to that and let us know, hey, there's an issue here with Sandy Beach fees, for instance, and they could do the same with our community policy.
Yep.
Okay. As opposed to and separate from a specific issue to the administration of the policy to that person's application. Okay. Got that. All right, we will figure something out there. Additional proposed changes, we talked about the Emergency Operations Center not being rentable. An issue with proof of insurance. Currently, we only require that when alcohol is consumed at an event. You get into this issue a little bit if it's like an organization and maybe they're a frequent user, and currently with our sanctioned users, they're not paying any fees and we don't have a damage deposit. So is that an instance where we'd want to require insurance? I don't believe we have in the past. And so if we were to start requiring insurance, the question is, what groups or people do we require that from?
And then what level of insurance are you going to require? What's your threshold?
Right, I think Economwalk has, it's something ridiculous.
They
It's
do,
like,
yeah.
I want to say more than $500,000 even for a regular user. And I think some cities would allow you to, maybe Ms. Quest, I'm wrong on this, but you could purchase insurance through the city with the city as an additional insured. I don't know that we have any program in place in this city for
No.
that.
No, I think what they want is the city to be declared as an additional insured on their insurance policies, how that
Oh, like on
reads.
their homeowner's insurance
So-
policy?
Whenever, like, for instance, my company does trade shows, it doesn't matter if we're a billion-dollar company or not, we still have to show proof of insurance. And we have to list the trade show as an additional insured on our policy, basically.
So
Is
for,
that correct, Mr. Dresser?
Yes, it totally, we don't require anything for the community center right now as threshold. Typically, we are named as additional insured in the event that it's necessary. So like for a project that's bid out and won, we're always additional insured on that. For someone that's holding a special event, potentially we'd be an additional insured on that, but there is also scope and duration questions then, as well as the amount, obviously. So I think this issue, while you discuss the requirement that insurance be required, it's probably simpler than that. You guys just make a decision as to whether or not we want additional insurance on this, and then there's many mechanisms to complete that.
In the current policy on section H, the second paragraph, it says, any group or individual desiring to serve, sell, or distribute alcoholic beverages must complete the waiver of liability form in Appendix A and submit proof of insurance in an amount of $100,000 minimum. So it's kind of in there.
Only for alcohol, though.
For
That's
alcohol.
the only circumstance in which
That's
it's
true.
required.
Though one could argue that most things that could require the insurance would happen with alcohol potentially, but
I think that's the rationale for just having insurance required in this instance.
yeah.
I mean, you could have a job fair, you could have all kinds of things that happen during the day that aren't serving alcohol, but that maybe have a lot of people coming through, and I think
Yeah.
Potential
that's kind
damage
of
to
that question.
bathrooms,
Yeah,
messes that are left, whatever it may be, sure.
yeah.
In some ways, that's why you have a security deposit or a damage deposit. That's kind of the insurance. If you're an individual as opposed to a business, you know, I'm not sure how I would get insurance for that. I don't know if I use my homeowner's insurance. Mr. Waters may have more knowledge about that than I do, but
Would it make sense to get a recommendation from our insurance agent on that policy?
Yeah, maybe look into other policies as well. I think as a threshold issue, you can't really lose by requiring insurance when you're renting out a piece of property, but at the same time, it is a little bit burdensome on the user, the applicant for that. And in some circumstances, it may be way overbearing. It may not be necessary. That's a judgment call that I'm certainly not willing to make.
And it may result in people not choosing to rent here then, which then there's no revenue source of, yeah.
so I'm hearing we should at least get a recommendation from our insurance, and then
And the
we
key
can move
word is
forward.
recommendation.
Right,
Okay.
yes, I said that.
Yep.
Okay, and then we can make a decision afterwards, but currently we don't require insurance, and my recommendation is that we probably shouldn't, except for what's already in the policy, and unless our insurance comes back with something different. So, as a recommendation. Forms of payment, I just mentioned this briefly as sort of a larger issue than a credit card processing system.
Points.
Oh. Should I not have moved on? What else do we have for insurance?
I was just saying for credit cards, you lose a couple points, but that's just the way business is done nowadays.
Well, businesses
You
are
can't-
operating differently these days. They're charging for that extra credit card fee as well. I mean, it's showing up everywhere. And Steve was just going to say, we actually can't lose those points. We'd have to charge that
Right.
additional user fee.
State statute requires us to collect it.
That's 3%, am I right?
I don't
You
think
can
it's
do a
always
per-
3%. I think 1.5% is, maybe it's
okay.
1.8%.
1.5 to 2. You can do a flat fee or a percentage of the transaction. It just depends on your credit card processor. And so that's a much larger decision for the city to engage in. I just wanted to bring it up as it would be easier, like, for people to use their card. Not everybody uses checks, or, you know, we don't have an ATM. I guess we have 2 banks close, but we don't have an ATM in the building to go get $900 worth of cash. So, you know, I just wanted
Just
to put it out
across the
there.
street,
Just
though.
across the street. Hopefully not over everybody's daily limit. But, and, you know, moving forward, that could be a way to take in other payments for the city, so it wouldn't just be for this one issue. Personnel, we've already kind of talked about. So pending any other issues, Mr. Fields, we've moved forward on a lot of these issues, but do you have anything?
Nope, nothing else to add. I think you've covered it very well.
Ms. Curler?
I had two other thoughts. One is kind of tied to the personnel, but I wonder if it would be, if we might want to limit the time of day, or, like how late can an event go? Because, if somebody books till midnight and then they're here till 1, and, they're allowed to be here till 1, that's one thing. I think it could affect, make it a little bit easier for staffing if it wasn't, sort of late into the, early morning hours. So that's just maybe something we could think about. Maybe, there's certain hours that we would not allow rental on the weekends.
On sections 7, general rules and regulations, subs 8, it mentions the building must be vacated by 1 a.m. I would recommend like 11 p.m. because that way then you're not running into, like you had said, personnel having to come in at the wee hours of the morning. That's not fair. I mean, and then how do we account? Do we do overtime? Do we do, because that's like third shift. So technically, anyone working those hours would be paid more than in first shift.
Well, and like Tyrone,
In general, having city staff,
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, in general, having city staff come in on the weekends is going to be overtime regardless.
Right.
It's not the time of day. It's, if they're coming in on the weekend, they've already put in a full week's work for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be overtime no matter what, if it's a Saturday or Sunday event.
I just think 1 a.m. is kind of late, and
Yeah.
especially then if people aren't really cleared out by 1 a.m., which we've heard, does happen sometimes, that's getting to be awfully late.
Okay, then we'll have to go look at the duration of the rental. I think it's currently 8 hours. And so for a nighttime rental, we would have to say then when that starts, or just push back or move forward the time that you would have to be out by.
4 to midnight or whatever.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
however that would be. One other thought is, and I think we've heard, there's a couple references in the current policy to the pantry being available for the seniors and, discounted rates for the seniors. And I think that was at the time when it was contemplated that the seniors would want to use this as their senior center, and my understanding is that they don't. So I don't know if we should get some input from Club 55 just to verify that, or just, again, in the interest of kind of simplifying it, take out references to seniors.
Mr. Wilkie, what's the usage of the Club 55 in this facility? I know there's some events downstairs during the day.
Yeah, I don't think Club 55 uses our building at all. Misty may know better. We have the senior advisory group, which is kind of long-term and separate from Club 55. And they generally run, they're generally tied more to the meals that are served here, the senior meals. And they tend to do some, like holiday meals or holiday events, and then they do bingo and several type things along that line. And so they tend to use the room periodically throughout the course of the year.
So is that a completely volunteer-based group?
Yeah, it's pretty loosely based. They have a recording secretary, and they generally take care of all the rentals and lining up the times when they're going to be here and what they're doing. But that's about it. Used to have a committee that took minutes and everything, but I haven't seen that.
Well, the reason I ask is because, they would not necessarily have $900 to rent out the Rock Lake room downstairs to do that kind of function for the amount of time. So and yes, there would be Lake Mills residents, but how do we want to, oh gosh, we're getting back into that classing again, or delineate from those types of situations?
Yeah, we should have the policy, we should take the policy and look at our current users and see how that policy would apply.
How it's gonna
Because
impact
we
them.
want
Good
to make
idea.
sure that we understand that if the senior group is using the facility and we're going to start charging them a large sum of money,
Right.
I'm sure that community-based program that's providing a lot of good to the community, they may say, forget it, we're not going to provide this service any longer. And that's probably not good for the community, so we need to make sure we review those type of things.
I
Can
completely
I
agree.
chime in really just briefly? And
go
Mr.
ahead.
Wilkie, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're referring to is a little bit different than what the daily meals are, because that's run through Jefferson County, and we have a contract with them, so they do get a reduced rate because of the daily. They use it the Monday through Friday, the kitchen, and they're the individuals who get to use the pantry and keep all of their supplies locked in that pantry. That's a little bit different than the Senior Advisory Committee.
So that language about the pantry is still accurate then, it sounds like. That's still correct.
I'd have to look at it exactly, and I'm not 100%, but I do know that that Jefferson County does contract with the city to use the kitchen facility for the daily. It used to be called Meals on Wheels. I think we refer to it as Nutrition Site now, but that is separate, and they run that. That is not just a volunteer-based organization.
And they pay room fees, it sounds like.
They do pay a fee, but it's reduced. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
And the reason for a contract with them is, well, they're an outside government entity for one, and then two, I'm getting because they use the room so frequently. Is that why we went the contract route?
Correct.
Actually,
That's my
they provide the
understanding.
contract. We don't. And I think it has to do with their federal status.
Okay.
So they, in order to be able to prove that they're serving a certain number of meals and those types of things, they contract with us to guarantee that they get the use and that we will work with them on whatever they need to be able to meet their requirements.
So is the contract the city has with the county of Jefferson or with an organization that works just within the county of Jefferson, but
No,
it's a private?
It's the county.
It is the county. Okay, thank you.
So then should there be a section of this policy that has to do with government usage?
There always has been. And I think you've been talking about leaving that one in there.
So
Well, I
that would
think
be an
maybe-
example of that, but it sounds like they're paying a fee.
Maybe contractual use. There should just be a small section describing what that is and who might we have a contract with for some type of service.
I'm only thinking about potential prom, if that, because they would fall underneath government. So what does that look like when we really look at it?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm taking a note. I'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to address it.
No problem.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I
Thank you
had.
appreciate you working on this, Mrs. Bishop and Misty. It's obvious that it does get a little more complicated when you look at trying to fix it and make it better, but I appreciate your work.
Thank you, council members. I appreciate your attention on this tonight. And, with this, I can get a way forward that will make more sense for everybody and address hopefully all of these issues and the questions brought forward tonight. So I intend to get that to you soon.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to item F. Discussion decision on accepting the Lake Mills Strategic Planning Report. We have a motion 22-7-2-1 in front of us for the Lake Mills Strategic Plan Report. Misty, can you read that?
City Council Motion 22-7-2-1, accepting the Lake Mills Strategic Plan Report and authorizes the city manager to place on file.
Right before we get into discussion, can we have a motion?
I move to adopt motion 22-7-2-1, accepting the Lake Mills Strategic Plan Report and authorizing the city manager to place on file.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop. I'm going to go, I guess, to comment, Ms. Curler.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I wrote a brief memo just suggesting that we take a look at this tonight. There is a prepared motion, but I think it would be fine if we want to discuss it and discuss possible revisions and then bring it back at a future meeting. So This is the document that we have posted for tonight's meeting is the results of the 3 strategic planning sessions that we had with Erin Elvisacker from Cream City Marketing. And it's dated May of 2022. It says confidential on it, which she informed me is really just more for our purposes than for anybody else, that it's not a final necessarily. I think it would be pretty logical to update the date to, some time period that matches when we are likely to adopt this, and also update to the new city manager name, since Mr. Wilkie only has a couple of months left with us. I looked through it, and I also found a few things that, I would tweak some of the language based on our meetings, but I thought maybe this would be a time that we could talk about it together, see if there's any consensus around any other revisions that we might want to make. If it gets to be more revisions than we think we can tackle in a brief discussion here, we could, do another brief work session just to with Erin just to hammer out some of that language. So I think we can go a couple of different ways with this.
Mr. Wilkie, did you have any comment on this?
No, I thought she did a fine job with putting the concept together. We've never done a hearing on it or any type of public presentation. It's always been council's document on what they've seen as things that they want to have accomplished in the next time period before they did another revamp. But other than that, everything looks fine. I'm sure it needs some tweaks.
All right. Did we want to open it up for discussion, or do we want to review it over the next week and provide feedback in that direction? How would you guys like to approach this?
I have a question for Ms. Curler.
Yep.
Your proposed changes that you have in your mind, was that because what is written in the report that we got in draft form is different from what we discussed? And maybe I'm missing some of that in my notes, or did you just, upon review, think we should word things differently? I'm just curious.
I think some of it was really wordsmithing, just in the 5-year strategic objectives. And I was looking at my notes, and I felt like maybe some of the emphasis wasn't quite the same as what I thought we had discussed. And so it's maybe just wording changes just to make sure that we're clear. And also thinking that, we're going to have a new city manager. We want to make sure we're giving kind of clear points and clear direction as far as what we want them to accomplish. So the couple areas, I thought there was a little bit more that we had talked about in terms of staffing, recruitment and retention. In our work sessions, we talked about that being very important, and I think it's important for our staff to know that and our new city manager to know that we think that that's important, but that wasn't really highlighted, and I had that in my notes. Yeah,
It kind of hinted to a staffing study.
Yeah, there's a reference to a study there. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think it's, anything earth-shattering, but I thought it might be worth discussing if we wanted to do any wordsmithing. Again, we could do it now, we can do it at a future meeting if people want a little more time to think about it, and that would also give us an opportunity to see if we can have Erin come and join us and take notes on any changes, and then hopefully, another meeting or so, we would have our new city manager, and that could be incorporated into it as well.
I also like the idea of the public being able to review it if they so choose to, see if there's anything that piques their interest and they can communicate with us through email or phone.
Mr. Waters, what's your recommendation?
I was thinking that maybe we take a week and we, if there's any wordsmithing that we want to do, or maybe change any of the SWOT analysis type of things, to forward those to you within the next week. And then you can smith that around so it would be available for the next meeting. Does that work?
So,
I
Mr.
don't think we need
Drescher,
to.
how does that work in terms of walking quorum, or?
There is a motion on the table, but you could motion
To table.
bring it back at the next meeting or at some date uncertain.
But in terms of individual council members sending me their feedback, how, does that create any kind of problems?
Yeah, I would avoid that completely. That's my general rule. We don't want outside communication. That's the reason that we're holding these discussions in public. If it reaches that level.
Mr. Drescher, can you turn on your microphone, please?
I apologize, Misty, thank you. What I was saying is refrain from that type of communication altogether. You don't want to reach consensus through non-public means of communication. So that's the reason that we're holding meetings such as this. If it reaches that level, what I'd recommend is another work session where you've gathered feedback from the constituents and then you're able to kind of comprehensively address those issues and come forward with a more cogent or more a plan that's what you're looking for. So refrain from communicating on this topic just amongst yourselves. However, you have to be able to gather feedback in some way, shape, or form. So some structured route to do that. If we have a check-in at a future meeting where you discuss community feedback that you've gotten, or you're able to discuss your individual reviews, maybe this is a very fast process. If the amount of review that you have undertaken and the amount of change that you think is necessary is quite large, then let's plan a work session, get Aaron back in and move forward that way.
I don't think we need to go into another work session. I think we could just bring it to the next meeting with revisions and table it till then, and then bring it back up, and then suggest revisions and go from there.
And in that circumstance, I'm certainly happy to be like a conduit. If you want to get me your suggestions, I can put them in a document that's readily available to the public and readily available to you at the next meeting.
Or would you want us to send them directly to Erin, or, I mean, I think we still have a contract with her, so that's another way to go. I don't want to put one more thing on Steve's plate since he's got a lot of things he's probably wrapping up.
So
I wouldn't,
making recommendations to Dan to revise the document, you're thinking to revise it before the next meeting,
Or summarize the
But-
proposed revisions, maybe, with that?
but I guess I was thinking that we would just bring those suggestions to the next meeting.
And I think that's appropriate if you want to have, yeah, I think that's a great way to go.
And that way, it's not piling on you, and it's more of a public forum, and it gets our thought process out there. In the meantime, the community has, the document is public, so the community can provide feedback between now and the next meeting.
Would we allow the public to speak regarding this topic the next time we meet? Because that would require,
They can speak during public comment, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could have tonight if anybody had, wanted to or looked
Yeah.
at it. So I think at least it's out there. But I don't want to speak for anyone else. I feel like it's very close to final, so I think it's in sufficient form for Steve to use for developing the budget and, those kinds of things. So I think it gives enough direction on, what the priorities are.
I think the document's very close, it just might need a small tweak here and there.
Yeah.
Is everyone else okay with that? So I'd move to table motion 22-7-2-1 at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Waters, second by Ms. Quidnow. Any discussion on the tabling? Seeing none, can we have a roll call on the table?
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, so motion 22-7-2-1 has been tabled until our next meeting. Item G on the agenda is the discussion decision on privilege in the street, 201 North Main Street, Stephen and Susan Sterwald. That's motion 22-7-2-2. Misty, can you read that?
City Council Motion 22-7-2-2, authorizing the granting of a privilege in the street for prohibited encroachment or encumbrance in the right-of-way identified as the North Main Street Alley directly north of 201 North Main Street.
Can we have a motion?
I move to approve motion 22-7-2-2, authorizing the granting of a privilege in the street for a prohibited encroachment in the right-of-way identified as North Main Street Alley directly north of 201 North Main Street.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Mrs. Bishop, second by Ms. Quidnow. We're open for discussion. Let's have staff comment first. Mr. Wilkie.
With the improvement going on at what used to be the Lake Mills Pharmacy, which is going to now be part of Lake Mills Tyrone Brewery, the parking lot that historically had been used for a lot of traffic back and forth between Main Street and the parking lot in the rear was closed off, and we identified this area as being much more significant for moving people back and forth between those two areas. As you remember, we applied, actually Legendary Lake Mills applied for a grant to do some work there. The city had planned on upgrading the sidewalk anyways, and so we've been working towards that. In reviewing the site, the building on the south side, which I think is 201 South Main Street or North Main Street, has a set of steps that encroaches onto our property. It's a historical set of steps that's been there long before I was here. But it is on our property, and so it should have a privilege. We've been working with the Sterwalds to modify the stairway. We anticipate that they'll be filing for a building permit, which will then provide us some information on how they plan to upgrade the steps. And from that information, we think that you should grant the privilege in the right-of-way so that we can start working around getting them to adjust the stairway and make it easier for us to upgrade that alley.
So questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. Looking at Paul's Hermanson's memo, it looks like he would like us to approve it with the permitting, design, and satisfaction of the above conditions. Do we have those? And then if we do not have those, should we approve this without those?
Paul says conditional approval, so just approve it conditioned on those being provided.
Okay.
Who currently maintains that alley?
We do.
The city does, so that's not going to change.
There are a lot of things that will be coming before you as a proposal from Legendary Lake Mills on how to modify the alley. We were looking at just putting in a sidewalk, some drainage, and being able to maintain it consistent with what we had. They're looking at more lighting and more decorations and, features in the concrete and those types of things. And those will be coming forward to you. Staff has provided them with a memo outlining our concerns, or will provide them with a memo outlining our concerns, which are numerous.
So I see that there's a survey in the community at this point
Yes.
through social media.
Yeah, the grant required that they have public input. So that's moving forward. The consultant's been pretty good to work with. They have a pretty good background in municipal planning. So they've been pretty good to work with, but obviously, there are some things that she was from Texas, so there's a little bit of difference between removing snow in Texas and removing snow in Wisconsin and those types of things. So we're trying to work through that. Also, it's the lighting, who's paying for the lighting, who's paying for the watering, who's taking care of the flowers, those types of things. But that's separate from this privilege. This privilege is just giving Steve and Sue the right to have that stairway in there in a certain spot, which is, if you walk by, you can see where it's at right now.
Ms. Curler?
I guess I was just going to ask, is there any other access to the second floor besides, there's kind of two sets of stairs that come from the opposite directions, but up to that second floor door, are there any other access to the second floor?
No,
Okay.
that was
Place that access could be,
relocating.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be. At this point, the Sterwalds are trying to sell the property and move it on. It would be great if they could move it on, but there's a certain amount of remodeling that would need to be done in the building. Maybe if it's, if he sells it and someone else is coming to look at it, it would be something that would happen. But at this point in time, the best option for us is they're going to remove the back half of the steps and just have it come down to the front.
Oh, okay.
So it takes up a substantially less, as a smaller footprint.
Thanks.
Is that a similar question? Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess I just wanted to echo Ms. Quidnow's question. Is it advisable for us to approve this now with all these conditions? Or, we face this from time to time where it's sort of like an incomplete application. We don't have all the plans and so forth. Would it cause a problem for moving forward with the project for us to wait until the staff has the plans and feel that they meet the city's needs, or?
Well, the first one is if you can identify the issues better than the staff can on a conditional approval, that would be great. And second, I'm sure it would have an effect on the Sterwalds. They are here tonight if you want to ask them.
Because they're trying to sell the property, and just wanting to have that assurance. Okay.
I think for me, it comes down to the encroachment's already there and what they do to it, just like any other additional building or construction would require permits or other city approvals. So we're just really ratifying the encroachment. That's the way I see it anyway.
It's similar to what we did when we did South Main Street. There are just a ton of encroachments in the public right-of-way. So when you go to our property edges and you go straight up, all those windows that stick out and all those benches and all those, so all we did was, have them acknowledge that they were in our right of way. And that's basically what's happening here. If the city at some point in time decides they need that, they can make them move it. And I'm sure Dan can tell you, we could force them probably to get that stairway out of there now. But I don't think that's the approach we want to take right now. I think we watch it, we wait for the right building permit, and we try and get them to redo it then. At this point in time, we can work around it the best we can. I think that's the best approach we take. They're also required to, whoever ends up owning it will be required to provide insurance. They indemnify us on that, so.
Yes.
So I guess the question I have is the stairway impeding the ability of Legendary Lake Mills from doing what they are going to do to the alleyway to make it what it wants to be? And is there any safety concern with it being in that alleyway? Like, could it potentially be an issue for anyone going past that? Is there enough space for traffic?
There's enough space for handicap traffic.
Okay, that's,
There is safety. Every single item that's in the public right away could be a safety concern. So that's why we have them. When we capture them with a privilege, we make them provide insurance. The occupancy permits that we gave them with South Main Street didn't even do that. It just acknowledged that that we had the right to tell them to get out of the right of way. But every sign that hangs over the street, every light that they have, everything that they have is a safety issue, could fall down or whatever. So it's, in this case, it's been there, it's passable, we keep it open. Will it, essentially, Legendary Lake Mills has been designing around it. Would it be easier to design with a gun? Yeah.
okay.
But I don't think you want to step out and hammer somebody that hard for this type of, to work around those little items.
Okay, thank you.
So I went and looked at the alley yesterday, and there was actually a car parked inside the alley. So if the stairwell's there, a car can't fit through the alley all the way. They can only come into the back and park, but they wouldn't be able to go all the way through the alley. So I don't know if I would mind having this stairway there to prevent cars from driving through there.
I think you'll find that there'll be other things rather than the stairwell that'll prevent that. Because you don't want cars driving through there, that's for sure.
Right.
But there are going to be other items that we can use, and that I think Legendary like Mills will use to prevent that type of activity. The steps shouldn't be that. The steps should be, they have to be there in order to be able to access that building.
Right.
And if we can get the building fixed at some point in time, then that's something that the building inspector should work with the street staff and the new owners to get it corrected.
So are you recommending that we add Paul's recommendations or stipulations to the motion, basically?
Yeah, just say conditionally approved based on the Director of Public Works memo.
Do I need to, does it need to be amended then?
It's Mrs. Bishop's motion.
You're right.
Okay, I'm trying to look at what I would do. Hold on. Would we add a section 4, Mr. Drescher, or?
Yeah, that would be appropriate. Sure, that would be appropriate.
Okay, give me a second here. I want to look at Paul's memo real quick for the right language.
Add a section 4.
Yes, let me look at. And Ms. Quinn, you just want to add Paul's conditions or say it's conditional?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the understanding I have, is that we will conditionally approve. I don't know, you're the wordsmither, so you go ahead and
Be
do
on the
with that.
spot. Okay, I'm trying to figure it out. Hold on, let me finish reading Paul's memo real quick. Basic following stipulations. Okay, so Mr. Drescher, I think what I would do is add a section 4.
Yeah, let's renumber
Say-
section 3 to section 4, add a new section 3 that states,
Jeez.
you're incorporating the recommendations of the Public Works Director to conditionally approve this, and then refer to the building permit and
Okay, I had you at incorporating recommendations of Public Works Director.
so what he's asking for is a written plan with detailed drawings, approval by the city.
Can I just say provided in his memo dated?
Yeah,
Okay, hold on. Provided in memo dated, it was just July 2022. Okay. Sorry, I'm switching between documents. Okay, I move to amend City Council Motion 22-7-22 to change Section 3 to Section 4, and then to add a new Section 3, which states, give me a second. That this privilege in the street is conditionally approved based on incorporating the recommendations of the Public Works Director as stated in his memo dated July 2022.
Do we need to list those 4 stipulations?
for clarity, you may, I think that Mrs. Bishop's intent is to incorporate the memo into the motion, so you wouldn't
Okay.
need to explicitly.
All right. Do we need a revised second on that motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
All right. So an amended motion by Mrs. Bishop, a second by Ms. Quidnow. Any further discussion? All right. So can we have a roll call on the amended motion 22-7-2-2?
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, thank you. Item H, discussion decision on city manager appointment and employment contract. There is no documentation yet. That opens up to discussion from staff. Mr. Drescher.
At this time, I'd recommend that you table this item for future consideration.
I'll make a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
A motion to table the city manager appointment. Motion by Ms. Curler to table, and second by Ms. Quidnow. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow?
Aye.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Item I, Resolution 22-39, authorizing expenditure to relocate Bartels Beach donor park sign. Misty, can you read Resolution 22-39?
City Council Resolution 22-39, authorizing expenditure to relocate the Bartels Beach Donors Park sign.
Look at this ladies across here laying
I
on the
move
ground.
to approve Resolution 22-39, authorizing expenditure to relocate the Bartels Beach Donors Park sign.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop.
So on this resolution, I believe that you have to isolate either option A or option B. I think those are pretty well explained both in the memo that was provided by the Grounds and Facilities Director, as well as in the resolution itself.
Thank you for that wonderful point of order, Mr. Drescher.
You can amend after the discussion, so there you go.
Do you want to have discussion first, Ms. Quidnow, or do you want to go ahead and amend?
We can discuss.
Okay. We are open to discussion. Staff comment. This is why you're here, Mr. Schreider. Please go to the microphone. Thank you.
You're the only one left in the room.
Yeah.
No, Dwayne's here.
Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne.
All right, what further information do you need on the two provided options? Or do you need any background on the two options in addition to the memo?
So basically, we got community feedback that the sign was in the slide, children's pathway from the slide, and there was some safety concerns. So the sign's currently been removed, and we're looking for solutions to repost the sign, I guess, and to give proper credit to people that have donated to the playground, basically.
Correct, yeah. The two options laid out are option A, the sign being placed on the exterior of the playground, and option B being placed on the interior of the playground, just in a different area. So it's really the two options that we have.
And there's a big price difference between option A and B.
Yep, and the playground would have to be closed for the time being, just based on the amount of equipment that would be used on the interior of the playground. So option A, in my opinion, is very simple. We're already doing similar work, reinstalling benches in the area anyway, so it would be very minimal efforts on my department staff to do so.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Just a quick one. Either option, do you know when the sign would be reinstalled?
Tentatively this week, we're doing Commons Park preparations for the project starting on the 25th, so it wouldn't be this week. It would basically be when we get a little bit of turf actually growing in that area before we actually do any actual drilling and augering, while we have erosion control matting in there. So I would say within a couple weeks.
Okay.
When the work actually starts, though, it could be done in the in a matter of hours.
That's option A.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Option B, I would need to do, or have further correspondence with Jeff Thompson, the representative from Burke Equipment and Lee Recreation, to figure out where exactly it's going to be placed. We would double check to make sure it actually complies with handbook standards for playground safety, and just basically see where the least inconvenient place for the sign would be on the interior of the playground.
And just to clarify for everybody watching on TV, option A is about $1,000 price point, and option B is about $4,500.
Correct.
And that's to relocate back in the playground surface at a different location, which we'll probably get some feedback on the proper place to put that if we chose option
Correct.
B. Okay.
Yep, it would require additional correspondence and meetings with Jeff Thompson.
Okay. All right, any other comment? Yes.
Just real quick, do staff, any of you know if the, sorry, I'm spacing out on the name of the donor organization, the Rotary, do they have a perspective on where they would like to see the sign, or are you working with them to?
As long as it's displayed prominently, it would be okay with Rotary.
Okay, thanks.
I agree with that. Every one of them, the key ones that I talked to were the same way. They were comfortable as long as it was well displayed.
Any other discussion? Back to you, Ms. Quitnow. You need to determine if you want to go with option A or option B in your motion.
I'm going to move to amend previous motion, Resolution 22-39, to select option A, 1,000 for sign relocation outside of the playground area.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. So there's been a motion for option A from Ms. Quidnow, second by Mrs. Bishop. Any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
And then do we need to vote on the previous motion too?
No, there was no action taken. You effectively amended it before.
Okay. Perfect.
I would like just to add thank you to the staff for their quick response. Once
Yes.
the community feedback came about, I feel like that was very, very quickly handled, and with safety, as the most important feature, so thank you.
I'd also like to mention that my children find the park to be very awesome. Quote.
All right, thank you. Item J on the agenda is Ordinance 1234, petition for annex from Ryan Malone, Parcel 018-0713-1214-002. This is currently tabled, so we would need a motion to remove it from being tabled, and bring it back as a motion.
I'll make a motion to remove Ordinance 1234 from the table and proceed with the third reading.
Motion by Ms. Curler, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Quidnow. Misty, can you read ordinance 1234?
Let's vote on that motion to remove from the table.
Excuse me?
Let's vote on that motion to remove from the table.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on that motion to remove from table? Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow,
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. So it's been removed. I guess we need a motion to do the third reading.
This one actually, Mr. Waters, the third reading did occur at the last meeting was my recollection, but then it was tabled after that. But just for clarity, I can read the title again if you'd like.
That would be great.
Ordinance 1234, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin. Parcel identification number 018071312140002.
So we'll need a motion to adopt, excuse me, I'm sorry if I interrupted there. The lingering issue was a transaction. The property was held in a one holding company, and the annexation application was, the petitioner was named as a different holding company. They have corrected that. I have confirmed that the quitclaim deed has been recorded and is attached here, so completely confident with this annexation moving forward. Thank you.
Hang on a quick second.
Thank you for helping us remember what it is that we tabled it for.
All right, can we have a motion to adopt ordinance 1234?
I move to adopt ordinance 1234, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, parcel identification number 018071312140002.
Motion by Ms. Quidnow, is there a second?
I'll second. I was trying to give an opportunity to Mr. Fields.
So second by Ms. Curler. Staff comment?
It's the annexation of a piece of property that is in the municipal boundary agreement and been within our extraterritorial jurisdiction for 20 years. We fully anticipated that at some point in time this property would come in, so it's consistent with everything we have. It's got waters and sewer and electric already available to it, so it's a good annexation.
All right, is there any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, can we move to roll call on the adoption of ordinance 1234?
Ms. Quidnow?
Hi.
Mr. Waters?
Aye.
Ms. Curler?
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Hey.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 1235. This looks like it's a third reading. Misty, can you read ordinance 1235?
Ordinance 1235, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance, Section 660-44, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, parcel identification number 246071418220007, owner James W Schmidt, 923 East Lake Street, Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
All right, can we have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 1235, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance 660-44, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin, for parcel identification number 246071418220007 for owner James Schmidt.
Motion by Mrs. Bishop, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Curler. Staff discussion.
This property is located on East Lake Street, near the Arbor Creek subdivision on the north side of East Lake Street. It had been pretty much wholly surrounded by the city of Lake Mills for a while. Has water and sewer and sidewalks and street. The septic system failed, and so they need to connect to sanitary sewer and city water. So you annexed them earlier, and so you need to follow up with the proper zoning in order to be able to comply with all the requirements of code.
Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call on ordinance 1235?
Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Ms. Curler,
Aye.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
Aye.
Ms. Quidnow.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 1239. This is a first reading.
Mr. Waters, I'd like to move to table this first reading of ordinance 1239 until the next meeting. There's a corresponding ordinance that the Plan Commission will maybe make a recommendation on at their next meeting next week, and then we could see that at our follow-on meeting.
It's a motion to table by Mrs. Bishop. Is there a second?
Could I ask you to repeat what was the reason that you wanted to table? I misunderstood.
Yeah, there's a corresponding ordinance that the Plan Commission is going to hear on their agenda next week, and I think it should be, a recommendation should be made before we have the first reading of this ordinance. So I'd like to move it to the next meeting.
Is there a second? One
I'll
more.
second for the purposes of discussion.
Motion to table by Mrs. Bishop, second by Ms. Quidnow. So we are open for discussion.
Mrs. Bishop, can you tell us a little bit more about the ordinance that the Plan Commission is going to be considering and how that relates to this proposal?
Sure, it's an ordinance amendment in relation to conditional use permits for planned business. And this first reading of ordinance 1239 is for a change to planned business. And so I think they should be heard together. And hopefully the Plan Commission would make a recommendation one way or another next week. And then we would get that the following meeting. And then we could have this first reading in addition to that.
So this motion has been forwarded to us from the Planning Commission already, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And the ordinance that's going to them for recommendation next week was not before them in conjunction with this.
So I guess I look at this, I know you're very pro-business, and what I'm going to say is not a reflection upon you, Mrs. Bishop, because of some of the things that you've already done on your time on council. But I guess I look at this as something that's been passed by Planning Commission. This organization has gone through the rules as it's clearly stated. One of our strategic planning things is to be more business friendly. There's a concern that the community is not business friendly. And, you know, I don't know exactly what's going to the Planning Commission, but I guess I am kind of against changing the rules a little bit as something is in process. And I have a hard time delaying this, I guess, at this point. It is a first reading. There is an opportunity to do a second and a third reading. So I think we have ample time to address this issue moving forward.
Okay, I mean, I disagree.
I guess I would
that's why-
concur on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Fields.
I guess I would somewhat concur with that, because Planning Commission sent that to us, that we shouldn't hold this up for them making another decision if they've already sent it to us. And we do have another month before we're going to finalize this. So if something comes up, we can always put the brakes on it within the next 4 weeks. I guess that would be my feeling.
Is there any other comment or discussion? All right, so let's have a roll call on the tabled motion by Mrs. Bishop. Misty?
Excuse me, may I just clarify? So the motion that we're voting on is a motion to
To
table?
table,
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Ms. Curler,
No.
Mrs. Bishop,
Aye.
Mr. Fields,
No.
Ms. Quidnow.
No.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Waters,
No.
motion failed 1-4.
All right. Can we have a motion for the first reading then?
That, I can just do the reading, doesn't need a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Right here.
Ordinance 1239, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance Section 660-44, official zoning map, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin. Parcel identification number 018071312140002. Owner, Kingbird Real Estate LLC, W7411 County Hwy V, Lake Mills, Wisconsin. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. Section 1, City of Lake Mills Ordinance, Section 660-44, Sub A. The official zoning ordinance and map of the City of Lake Mills are hereby amended upon annexation of the subject parcel by the City of Lake Mills to zone the following described 2.322 acres identified by parcel identification number 018071312140002 and address W7411 County Hwy V, Lake Mills, Wisconsin, from rural development to planned business as depicted in the attached map, which is incorporated herein. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication as provided by law.
All right, so that was the first reading. We'll have the second reading at our next meeting, and of course, the Planning Commission will meet between now and then, so we can consider that at that point. All right. Item M on the agenda is Ordinance 1240, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance, Section 38-3, Meetings, Rules of Procedure, first reading. Misty, can you read Ordinance 1240?
Ordinance 1240, amending City Code Chapter 38, City Council, Section 38-3, Meetings, Rules of Procedure. The City Council of the City of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does hereby amend Section 38-3, Meetings, Rules of Procedure. Section 1, the intent of this amendment is to promote the efficient presentation of proposed ordinances to the City Council and to simplify the process of adoption of proposed ordinances by removing the required full first reading of all proposed ordinances, thereby allowing all readings of proposed ordinances to be completed by title only, unless a full reading of the proposed ordinance is requested by a member of the City Council at any time during the required 3 readings. Section 2, Section 38-3, Meetings, Rules of Procedure, Sub J, Ordinances, Sub 1, Reading of Ordinances, is amended as follows. Section A, all proposed ordinances shall be read a total of 3 times before the council may vote on any of them. Each ordinance reading shall be read by title only. However, any council member may request at any time of any of the required 3 readings that the proposed ordinance shall be read in full. Section 3, ordinance language to be repealed is stricken. Ordinance language to be added is underlined. When revising, compiling, or printing this ordinance for inclusion in the city code, the material that has been stricken and the underlying need not be included. Section 4, adoption of this ordinance has been sponsored by City Council Representative Michelle Quednow. Section 5, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent with or contravening the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 6, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon passage and publication.
So that was the first reading, and
Correct.
if I understood that right, in this passage, you won't have to read that.
That is exactly right.
We wanted to keep it under a page.
All right, fantastic.
Well,
So-
yeah.
So the next reading will be the second reading will be at our next meeting, which is the first part of August. So that moves us to recommendations for future agendas. Any recommendations?
Well, we're gonna have the strategic plan on the next agenda, right? So that's one.
Yes, so
We
please
are.
come prepared on the strategic plan. Anything else?
I'm drawing a blank.
And I'll talk with Mr. Wilkie about the EMS schedule and see what we can do to prompt that up as much as we can.
Steve, anything else that we should be thinking about for next meeting?
Yeah, there were a number of things, but I can't think of it right off the top of my head now.
All right. So we're going to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Section 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion to convene into closed session for the reasons just stated.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Curler, second by Mrs. Bishop. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Steve, are you an aye? Steve, you
do
ready
you-
to go into closed session?
Yep, I'm good.
All
Aye.
right, 5-0. All right, we are
Sorry, I
going
gotta
into
get the
closed
mute
session.
button.
Thank you. We will not come back in front of the camera after we reconvene back into open session. We'll simply just simply come back into open session and close out later on tonight. Thank you.